Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Alicia. So today I thought I'd make a little story time about my type 1 diabetes diagnosis, considering I get asked quite often how I knew I had diabetes, how I was diagnosed, what caused my diabetes, which is stupid. So I thought I'd do a little story time on how I was diagnosed, my story. Hopefully this can help let people know about the early signs and symptoms, what to look out for, because for me personally, I didn't know any of it. And because I was so uneducated, it led me to a DKA diagnosis upon my diabetes diagnosis, which was traumatic. And the fact that DKA is preventable with the right knowledge is so important to why people need to learn and know about the signs and symptoms. I was diagnosed in January of 2021, but my first symptoms started showing up around November of 2020. The first symptom that I found that I had was increased thirst. Now, it wasn't anything drastic or anything, but for me, I'm not a huge water drinker. I don't drink heaps of water even now. I know I should, but anyways, not the point. I went from drinking next to no water to drinking 2 liters of water a day. Now, for most outside people, that doesn't seem crazy. For me, it didn't even seem crazy. It seemed like, oh my gosh, I'm finally becoming healthy and drinking the water I need to be drinking. So I didn't really think much of it. I was living my life normally. I was going to school, I was hanging out with my friends, nothing really changed. I was just drinking a little extra water, I guess. But throughout November, I went from drinking 2 liters of water to drinking 5 liters of water. Still, for me, that wasn't crazy. I was like, oh wow, like I'm just drinking a lot of water. That's great. Like I haven't drunk water like this in ever. Like, I never drank water like that. So, obviously, with me drinking more water, I was going to the toilet more frequently. And for me, that made sense. Like, more water, I obviously am going to need to go to the toilet more often. Like, that just made sense. So I never really brought it up as a cause for, like, concern. I do, however, remember going around and being like, oh my gosh, I'm drinking heaps of water, mom. Like, this is kind of weird. Or to my friends being like, hey, look at how much water I'm drinking. That's kind of crazy, right? Like, I'm really thirsty and I cannot quench my thirst, but look how much water I'm drinking. Here's a video of me drinking water to prove that I drink water. I just drink half a liter. This is like empty. That was one of the main things that was a problem for me. No matter how much water I drank, no matter how many liquids I drank in general, I was trying lemonades, Gatorades, Lucozades, Hydrolyte, everything. No matter how much I drank, my thirst could not be quenched. Now, I think it's important to mention that 2 months prior, in like September of 2020, I started on Accutane, which is a super drying medication to help get rid of acne. Whenever I brought up my thirst to my mum, she thought, oh, the acne medication is probably just drying out your insides and making you super thirsty. Makes sense, right? So I trusted her on that. I was like, okay, yeah. Makes sense. The next symptom that I kind of realized was how tired I was getting. It was like early December when the exhaustion really started to hit me. I was still in school at this point. I was sleeping in class, like I couldn't focus. It kind of felt like I was outside of my body. Like I was so exhausted that I couldn't really control my body. My body just felt heavy. It was kind of a surreal experience. I kept putting it down to the fact that it's the end of the year. I'm probably just exhausted from all the schoolwork, from traveling to and from school, everything that comes with school, the stress and pressure of school, grades, etc. I just thought that I was tired and I was exhausted and lethargic because of school. The issue came when I finished school and that exhaustion never went away. I was still drinking heaps of water. I was drinking up to 10 liters a day by this point. I was feeling sick all the time. I was sleeping for like 16 hours a day. I didn't have the energy to really do much at all. And I didn't really understand why. To me, it was pretty obvious that I wasn't well. To everyone else around me, I seemed normal in a sense. Like I had weird behaviors, but Otherwise, I seemed normal, and I didn't understand why no one would be like, oh my gosh, she's actually really sick. One of the key moments before my diagnosis that I remember is sitting down with my mum a couple of days before Christmas and being like, Mum, I really think something's not right. Like, I don't feel like myself. I feel not right in my body. Something just is wrong. Like, something's not right. And she said, what do you mean by that? And I was like, I feel sick. I don't feel well. I kept telling her, I need to go to a doctor. Like, something's definitely not right. I knew in my head and I knew in my body that something wasn't right. It was Christmas. She called, she tried to make an appointment. My doctor was on holidays. We went to see a doctor just down the road, just like some bulk bill doctor. And he just said, go get a blood test. If you don't know me very well, you won't know that I actually have a crippling phobia of needles. I hate blood tests. I can't do them. They make me ill. So I just didn't get the blood test. I'm gonna say I didn't get the blood test. Maybe that's my fault. But I didn't do it. I didn't know this guy. He just wanted a blood test to get a blood test, to get a better image of who I was. So I just waited until I could see my GP, because he's known me my entire life. He'll know what's best. He won't send me for unnecessary blood tests. It got to Christmas, and I remember waking up on Christmas morning feeling like absolute crap. There's no other way to describe it. I was thirsty. I felt like my entire body was like the Sahara Desert. My mouth was so unbelievably dry. My mum gave me a hug, and she told me this later on. When she hugged me, it felt like a skeleton. So I hadn't even noticed, but I had lost a lot of weight. But basically, Christmas went on as usual. Like, I had breakfast. It made me feel sick whenever I ate. I was just very exhausted all day. My family was over and I was sleeping on the couch because I did not have the energy to interact whatsoever. I felt like crap, honestly. Like, just, there's no other way to describe it, really. I just didn't feel good. So Christmas was over. Boxing Day, the 26th. My friends come around, we go shopping. On the way from going to my house to the shopping center we shopped at, I drank 2 liters of water in the car ride. It was a 40-minute car ride and I drank 2 liters of water. And when we were walking around, I was drinking Boost juice, I was drinking Solos, I was drinking any drink I could find to try to quench this thirst in my mouth. And I kept telling myself, it was like a 40-degree day, that the reason I'm so thirsty right now is because it is so hot. That wasn't the case. I was dying, but you know, me making up scenarios made more sense. So we got home from shopping and my friends were having a sleepover and I felt horrible. Caitlin, Kiera, if you're watching this, I felt awful for not being a great host at this sleepover because all I did was sleep. I put on the next step and I slept. I laid in my bed and slept. The next morning, they got up, they went home. I don't even remember them leaving, really, and I just slept. That's all I could do. And my mum just kept telling me, oh, sleep, you'll feel better, sleep, you'll feel better, you know? So I slept. No major events happened between, really, Boxing Day and New Year, except for the fact that I still had all those symptoms and I still felt sick. I was sleeping more than I ever had and nothing was getting better. On New Year's Eve, we went to the movies and we watched a movie. We got the popcorn. We got one of those massive cups of soda, of soft drink, which was probably, looking back at it, the worst thing I could have done ever. I got this massive cup of Solo and I remember drinking it to try to quench this thirst that I had. And I remember my entire throat and chest just burning. Don't know if that was related to the diabetes. More than likely was, but it was awful. We got home. My mum hugged me again. She brought this up later after my diagnosis. She was like, you were like a skeleton. You were so thin. I was continuously losing weight, even though I was eating normally, if not more than I usually would have. And I was drinking more water, but nothing, there was no clear indication on why I should be losing all this weight, especially because I wasn't really exercising at the time. A couple of days after New Year's, we went on a hike. Just my mum, my brother and I, we went on a hike. I really didn't want to go. I felt like absolute crap. I felt so lethargic. I felt so exhausted. I really didn't want to go, yet my mum insisted I come. It got to the point where we were on the way there and I was like, I might just sit in the car. Like, I really don't feel good. She said, let's just try and come on this hike. I went on the hike up this massive mountain to see this waterfall. It was great. I felt like absolute crap. The entire time walking up that, like, steep hill, I felt the worst I could have ever felt. I felt like a corpse trying to climb a mountain. It was horrible. And I kept asking, like, can I sit down? And my mum was like, come on, we've got to keep going. Even on the way back, she kept saying that. I don't think she realized how sick I actually felt. We got back to, like, the little barbecue area. And I was eating all this really carby food. Not knowing, you know. But this was up in the, like, countryside near my house. On our way home, we pass our favorite fruit shop. We always go there to get apricots and berries. It's amazing, but they sell smoothies and ice creams too. So when we got here, I got a smoothie, my mum got a smoothie, and my brother got an ice cream. Now, this smoothie was so good. I don't regret it whatsoever. I'm drinking this smoothie because I'm still thirsty. I have drunken so much water all day, but I am still thirsty and I needed this smoothie. So I'm drinking this smoothie, it's all fun, it's all dandy. It quenched my thirst for like 10 minutes and then we got home. I fell asleep on the couch while my mum made dinner. And then she was like, oh, you need to wake up to have dinner. I sat down at the table, looked at my taco, got up, ran to the bathroom, chucked my guts up. I couldn't even eat. I just vomited and vomited. And my mum was like, you're gonna feel a lot better now that you've thrown up. Like, you might have just had a tummy bug and you really needed to, like, you know? You're gonna feel heaps better now. I trusted her. I was still thirsty as hell, so I'm sculling water. And she goes, don't, you're gonna make yourself sick again. Because I kept just throwing up the water. Anything that went into my system, I threw up again. So that night, I slept in her room, so the ensuite was, like, right next to me. And I threw up the entire night. And she said, oh, do you want me to take you to the hospital or can we just sleep tonight? And if you still don't feel better, I'll take you in the morning. I felt horrible. I am a very big people pleaser. So I was like, you sleep. Like, if it's still bad in the morning, we'll go. And she's like, good. Like, yeah, okay. So I'm sitting there literally dying, getting little tiny sips from my water bottle because my mom insisted that I don't drink much water. And I can't explain how uncomfortable I felt with not being able to drink water. Like, it was so uncomfortable. The next morning, I woke up and I went into my kitchen where my mum was and she goes, do you still think we need to go to the hospital, Alicia? Or can you just wait another week to see your doctor? And so I said, no. Like, I'm not going to put up with, like, waiting another week to go see my GP because I felt like crap. So she goes, okay. She takes me to the hospital. The entire car drive to the hospital, I slept. We get to the hospital and I remember barely being able to stand. I was like walking like a zombie. We got into the waiting room and I'm sitting on the couches and I just feel like crap and they rushed me into triage really fast. And I remember sitting there like explaining my symptoms, literally on the verge of passing out. That's how horrible I felt. And they said, we need to do a finger prick for you. Now, I was too out of it to realize what they were saying. I don't do well with needles. I don't do well with blood. They're like, I was like, no, like, let me just lay down, please, let me lay down for a second. Like, I just need to lay down and then you can do it. They said, no, we need to do it now. They gave me a finger prick and they were testing my sugar. That's what they were doing. And they looked at me and they go, we're going to need to do another finger prick. And that's when they checked my ketones. And they were both ridiculously high. And I was like, can I lay down now? Like, I was so done. Like, I was so done with it all. She goes, you can lay down when we get to recess. That moment was terrifying for me. I was getting rushed into this room. I was laid down on this hospital bed. It was this massive room. There were monitors everywhere. It was so scary. But I laid there and I was just so out of it. I remember being incredibly out of it. Like, I didn't know where I really was. Nothing was registering in my brain. I was laying there. They didn't tell me what was wrong at first. But there were doctors rushing in. They were putting IVs in my arm. They were putting needles in my hand. I hate needles. Like, I was like, don't do it. Stop. Don't do it. Like, don't do it. And my veins were so shriveled from being so dehydrated that they couldn't get any lines in. So they poked me like a pin bag. It was not nice. It was disgusting. Did not enjoy. 0 out of 10 experience. But, you know, we live. And I was vomiting. I couldn't eat anything, I couldn't drink anything. They wouldn't let me drink water, which was hell. It was hell. Not being able to drink water was hell. I was laying there in such agony and in such fear. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was happening to me. I didn't know if I was going to be okay. My mum didn't know what was happening. They never really told us straight up. I had all these IVs in me, feeding me different things from bags. I don't even know what it was. And I kept asking for water. They wouldn't give me water. I was so uncomfortable. I was in so much pain. And then they came in and my mum goes, so what exactly is wrong with it? My mum was in just as much shock and fear as I was. Because she kept putting it off. She kept saying, oh, you'll be okay. And then to see me get rushed into resus the way I did terrified her. She was asking, oh, so what exactly is wrong with her? And they were like, oh, she's in DKA. And my mum's like, what is that? Like, what? And they're like, oh yeah, she's got type 1 diabetes and she's in diabetic ketoacidosis. So basically, my blood sugar is so high that ketones start to develop. It makes my blood extremely acidic. And they were talking about sending me to the ICU. I was that unwell. Because this was like COVID times, they were very careful on who they sent to the ICU. I came down with a fever because of how ill I was, and because of my fever they made me have COVID tests. I had to be put in isolation. Everyone who came in had to suit up before they could help me out. It was quite scary. But I sat in this resus room for like, I want to say like 7 hours. It was probably more close to 9 hours. In that time, my mum had left my brother at home by himself because she thought we would just be at the hospital for 5 minutes and then have them tell us, oh, you need to go home and see your GP. It's not that big of a deal. Like, she's just got a stomach bug or whatever. But my mum called my dad and was like, you need to look after your son. And my dad was like, oh, going on about all this stuff about when are you going to be able to pick him up? Divorced parents things. Anyways, I remember very vaguely, but my mum told me afterwards, I grabbed the phone off her and just started screaming at my dad, like, I'm dying. Like, I'm literally in my deathbed in a hospital dying. Can you just look after my brother? Because right now I am so scared and I'm so terrified. And all you care about is when you can go back to work. So I thought I was badass in that moment. That is one thing. I could be dying and I will still be badass. But yeah, so that was the emergency room. And then at like 1 a.m. I was wheeled up to a ward. Why am I crying? It's not that big of a deal. Where they came in every hour and did blood tests and checked my vitals. I remember I couldn't eat like food. I wasn't allowed to eat food for like 3 days, which was hell. They would bring me in like the meals and I would be like, can I eat it? And they would test everything and they'd be like, oh no, sorry, not yet. So that sucked. I remember my mum crying a lot. They were like, we'll get social workers in. We'll help you through everything. We'll tell you how to manage this. Being told that you have a lifelong disease that needs constant attention and management is never easy. From that day, my life completely changed. I remember my mum crying, and she was crying for me, I think. She was crying because this was a change, and it wasn't a pleasant change. I remember not crying because I didn't feel like I could cry in front of my mum. I had to be strong. I had to show her that it was going to be okay, that it didn't matter. Like, we'll get through this, we'll be okay. I remember her saying those to me, but I felt like I had to be stronger. I remember every single night in that hospital, after my mum had fallen asleep, just crying because I was terrified. I was so scared. I felt so alone. I felt like I was questioning, like, why me? What did I do to deserve this? What did I do wrong? I remember my mum went home for like a day to go get clothes, to get toiletries, because we went into the hospital thinking I'd be there for 5 minutes. I was not there for 5 minutes, I was there for a week. So she went home to have a shower, to get changed, to get stuff for us. And I remember spending that day in the hospital just bawling my eyes out because I didn't know what to do. Like, how do you go from having a normal life to being told you've got this illness that you're gonna need to look after and you're gonna need to manage for the rest of your life, and there's no cure. Like, how do you do that? How do you just go on? The other thing I remember from the hospital is binge watching The Next Step. Yeah, so that's kind of funny. I binge watched The Next Step in the hospital. But basically, the week I spent in the hospital was to make sure that all my levels were back to a somewhat normal range. They were still extremely high, but it was getting me well enough to be able to manage it on my own. They taught me everything I needed to know. They taught me how to count carbs. They taught me how to manage my diet. They taught me how to give insulin, which was terrifying. I have a phobia of needles. Being told that I'm going to need to inject myself with a needle 4 times a day was petrifying. I didn't know what to do. Like, I was like, is there another way to do this? Can I just take a pill? Like, come on, like, I can't do 4 injections a day. Are you crazy? So they taught me everything I needed to know. They set me up. We went home, and I remember I left my charger in the hospital room, so my mum went up to go get my charger, and I just cried in the car for like 10 minutes. And she came back and I saw her coming back and I was like, no tears, like, I'm fine. But as you can tell, my eyes go freaking red, like, it goes puffy all around here when I cry. So she was like, oh, you've been crying, and I'm like, no, I haven't been crying. Like, what are you talking about? I think the scariest part was just having to tell my friends. Like, a lot of them were just like, oh, I'll get better soon. And then that just set off an entire thing in my brain. Like, oh yeah, I'm not getting better. Like, that's something that I'm never gonna have. Like, I'm never gonna actually be better. Like, I have to live with this illness forever. I remember for months I would cry every night, wishing I could just have my normal life back. I just wanted it to be a normal teenage kid. I just wanted to have normal teenage experiences, and I felt like this stopped me. It hasn't, and it never will. But I felt like it was just scary. I'm happy to say now I'm doing a lot better. Like, it does get better. If you've just been diagnosed with diabetes, it does get better. It sucks. I'm not gonna lie, it sucks for the first few months, but slowly you'll realize you get used to the injections, you get used to the finger pricks, you get used to the CGM changes and the site changes if you have to. It becomes a new normal. You will be okay. Like, it will get better. You'll find people who support and love you no matter what, and will do anything to understand you or help understand you. They'll do anything to help you, but it does get better. It's an adjustment. People around you are going to have to adjust. If that means you have to leave some people in your past to be able to grow and become a healthier, better human with this, then that's what needs to happen. There are going to be hard times, but this illness is not going to stop you doing what you want to do. It's going to make you stronger, and it's going to make you realize so many things about yourself that you never knew. You're gonna meet people because of this. Like, it sounds crazy and it might sound stupid, but you'll meet people who connect and relate to you. You'll meet people who inspire you, who help you through tough times. My diagnosis was the hardest thing I have ever had to experience, but it's made me so much stronger. I've gotten through everything. I'm still here. I'm still growing. I'm still learning. Times can be difficult. They can be terrifying. They're uncertain, but it will be okay. I know it will be okay. If anyone who's watching this ever wants to reach out, have a conversation, talk about diabetic things, DM me on Instagram. It's linked in the description. I want to thank you for watching this video. I know it was kind of long. I appreciate you for watching this video. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time.